Hello, this is Ram 55 coming at you with another race from Virtual Skipper 5, the game I've been playing a lot lately and really have been enjoying. Today we're doing round 4 of the Melges Cup. It will be the United States versus New Zealand, the boat down under. So I am anticipating a good race from the folks down there, as they are usually really good skippers. And you can see going into today's round, Spain and France are undefeated. New Zealand and the United States are going up against each other. Each have 2 wins and a loss, and they're tied with Switzerland, Italy, and Australia. Here's the lineup comparing the boats. The United States has a slight advantage in spinnaker and sails, and New Zealand has a slight advantage in the hull. The crews are pretty even, so again, should be a pretty interesting and close race. The weather today, it's cloudy. The wind is out of the east, force 5, and again, according to the Beaufort scale, force 5 is described as a fresh breeze with winds 18 to 24 miles an hour or 17 to 21 knots. So it won't be as crazy as it was in the last couple races with force 7 winds, which are pretty strong for this boat. They're almost overpowered. So once again, the game starts with both boats on the course side of the starting line. We have to maneuver to the pre-race side before 2 minutes is up. Otherwise we will get a foul. We'll have to do a 360-degree turn after the start of the race. So I just called up the instrument panel to get the countdown, and we've got 30 seconds to get across that line. We shouldn't have a problem. That's the New Zealand boat behind us here, and you can see the winds are currently about 20 knots. So pretty decent wind. On my compass, you'll see once again that I've got all the pointers in there. The green indicating the true wind direction. I'm sorry, the blue indicating the true wind direction. The green arrow indicating the apparent wind direction, and the yellow arrow indicating the current. So today I'm going to keep fairly close, try to keep fairly close to the New Zealand boat before the start. And this is fairly typical for match racing, where they kind of maneuver around. They don't want to get too far away from the other boat just in case the wind shifts and they get an advantage. So right now I'm on starboard tack, he's on port tack, and he's moving into my tail. And that is a very common tactic in match racing before the start. And I can't remember all the reasons why, but they just want to pin that boat down. But now the New Zealand boat is bearing away, going the other direction. But very, very common to see Melges Cup boats get on the tail of the other boat and just kind of sniff around behind them before the start. So we're down to just over a minute now, so I'm heading down toward the far marker on that starting line. Then I'm going to tack back through the wind and head back up toward the committee boat, get ready to start. Again, tacking up through the wind, going from a starboard tack now on a port tack. And as I do that, you can see the New Zealand boat in the distance is on a starboard tack, and his boat is red. Think of that as a red light. I have to give him right of way. Again, the racing rules are all about the right of way, and I'll be making some videos to explain the rules in detail, and I'll be using Virtual Skipper 5 to kind of highlight that. It's kind of difficult to do, to get a long stretch where you can actually see what's going on with right-of-way rules, but I think it'll be worthwhile doing. So now I'm not looking in a real good position. I'm on port tack, he's on port tack. We've only got 7 seconds, and he's pinching me up toward the line. Now he's got right-of-way because he's the downwind boat. So I'm going to tack out of his way real quick, and you can see that blue cross flag on the right of the screen there. That is the X flag, and that means I crossed early. So basically what I had to do there was dip back below the starting line, get completely on the other side, and then restart the race. So that immediately gives him a slight advantage. He maneuvered his boat in a position where I was being squeezed across the line. I either run into him, dip behind him, or turn around. In either event, it was a great start by the New Zealand boat, but we are off and racing. So there's the mark we're going to. We have to pass that to starboard. In other words, that mark will pass down the right side of the boat. And I will try to make as few errors as possible. Now you saw the arrow just went from green to blue. The wind veered to the right. It shifted to the right, so I need to turn my boat to get that optimum sailing angle, and it's also called a lift when it brings you up closer to the mark. You get headed if the wind shift takes you in a direction further away from the mark. So you can just see that mark to the left side of the screen there with that little arrow bobbing. And we are coming across on the port tack. The New Zealand boat is on a starboard tack, so he will have right away, but I have a feeling, because he got a better start than me, that he's going to be ahead of us when we actually cross. So I want to really watch the wind shifts. If the wind shifts to the left, that arrow turns blue and allows me to turn to the left. That would really be an advantage for us, just like that right there. So I get to turn left and point a little bit closer to the mark, so that's a wind shift in my favor on this tack. So all boats on the port tack right now that get that wind shift get a lift closer to the mark, whereas everybody on the starboard tack, it actually takes them a little bit away from the mark. So that was a favorable wind shift for me, and again I'm getting another favorable wind shift, but eventually I'm going to have to tack over in order to go around that mark. So you can see the advantage that the New Zealand boat has on us just based on that good start. That's what it's all about at sailboat racing, is getting a great start and then trying to hold your advantage for the rest of the race and prevent your opponent from passing you using rules of the road and tactics. Now we had a wind shift to the left there. That takes me further away from the mark, but we should be in good order. Another cruise ship going by. Again, we're sailing in the waters of Rio de Janeiro. We got some beautiful weather out here. The winds are currently about 21 knots. It's sailing weather. And I'm hoping that my boat and my tactics will be able to outsail the New Zealand skipper, but again, we're pretty closely matched. Now there, the wind shifted to the right. That's called a lift because it brings me closer to the mark. Veers when it goes to the right and heads when it goes to the left. He's already tacking. And it's too early for me to tack, so I got to fall back off, so I wasted a little bit more time there. Bad on me, another skipper error. And now I think we can make it, so I'm going to tack over. And he is rounding the mark. I can easily make this mark here. He's got his spinnaker up, and I'll be following suit, but we are behind and chasing him down. Spinnaker's popped up, and it's again trying to approach me over to the right there, so strong winds are blowing us over. Now I got the boat under control. I want to make that arrow green. Right now it's yellow, and now it's back to green, so I'm on the fastest point of track now. And I'm looking at his boat out in the distance. He's pointing high up into the wind, and you can see his spinnaker kind of fluttering. Now the spinnaker is strictly a downwind sail. It can go a little bit on an angle to either side. In fact, that's preferable. But it's not across the wind and it's not into the wind. One of the unique things about the spinnaker, it's only attached to the sailboat at the top of the mast. Both of the bottom points of the sail are held in by ropes and by a pole. There's a spinnaker pole that holds the spinnaker out on one side, and then it's just a sheet or a rope on the other side that helps you control the sail. It's not attached to the stay or that wire that holds the front of the mast on. Now you saw we made up some pretty good room there. We're pretty dang close to the New Zealand boat. So he's tacking away. I'm not sure why he's doing it. There's the mark that we got to go to. I'm not sure where he's going. So I've dropped my spinnaker, and I'm going to head to that mark. But you know, the wind direction now is actually going to let me put the spinnaker back up. We're going to be off and away. I think we've actually passed him just now because he's off and running in direction, not taking them closer to the mark. Now you look at the bottom corners of that red, white, and blue American flag spinnaker. None of them are attached to the stay. Now the stays are the wires that hold the mast up in the front of the boat and the back of the boat. It's the forestay and the backstay. On the side, the wires are called shrouds, and they keep the mast where it's supposed to be. It keeps it from flopping back and forth, forward and back, or left and right. And that spinnaker is not attached to any of those wires. It's attached to the top of the mast through a halyard. The halyard is the line that brings the sail up, and then a spinnaker pole on the windward side and a rope called a sheet on the other side. The other triangular sails that we normally sail with, whether they're jibs or jennies, are attached to the front stay, the forestay, and that's what makes the boats work well when they go to the wind. Spinnaker doesn't do that. It's pretty much a downwind sail only. So we're making pretty good time, and weather's pretty good. I'm going to tack to the other side and get a little bit closer to that mark and try to make that arrow green again. Got to keep an eye on the opposition there. Now he went pretty far to the left there before he came back, and it looks like we are going to pass well in front of him. So I would say skipper error on the New Zealand boat. We're doing pretty good here. Again, looking at the instrument panel on the bottom, the dashboard, whatever you want to call that, we've been racing now for just under 7 minutes. It's a little bit after 10 o'clock in the morning. Beautiful morning for sailing, and we are definitely in the lead. Where'd he go? I lost track of him. Ah, there he is. I don't know what he's doing. He was on our right side before. Now he's well off to the left. So he is wasting a lot of time going out in some really weird directions. So we were slightly behind him at the last mark. You saw how close we rounded behind him. And what I just did was hit the exclamation point at the top of the screen. Now you see an up arrow and a down arrow. And now you can see that the United States boat is in first. We rounded the mark behind him. And as I approach this mark, spinnaker's coming down, and we're hoisting the jib because we're going to have to go back up into the wind. And again, the spinnaker does not help me going into the wind. Now you can see that my boat has rounded the mark, and that's why I've got zeros out there. When New Zealand rounds the mark, they will display how many seconds or minutes they are behind us. So, doing pretty good. Again, the skipper must have had some partying or something last night. He wasn't thinking really clearly because he went off on a wild goose chase, and he has paid the price because he is well behind now. So now we are on a reach. We're almost beating into the wind, but the wind is not tight on the front of the boat. It's a little bit more to the right or off to the side. We're kind of reaching, not quite a beam reach where that wind would be directly off the side. So we're making pretty good speed, and now the Australian boat rounds the mark, and he's about 38 seconds behind. So we did really well on that last leg, more from his errors than us sailing well, because we kind of messed up a little bit as well. So now we want to round this mark, leave it to starboard, so pass it on our right side, and then we'll turn a little bit to the right, or to starboard, and we're going to be going to that mark that's over on the far right of the screen there. We need to pass that mark to the port side of the boat on the left side, which means we'll have to do a couple tacks to get there. So we've rounded that mark, and now let's see if we have maintained our lead over the New Zealand boat when he gets to that mark. He was about 38 seconds, 38 and a half seconds behind us at the last mark. We'll see where he is now. So we well and truly have this race in hand. There he goes around the mark, and he is 45 seconds. So he lost another 7 seconds on that last leg. So we're pulling away from him slightly, so we're doing pretty well. Again, we're beating into the wind now. That arrow is green. We can't sail any closer to the wind because our sails will luff, as they're doing right there. As your nose points directly into the wind, they're not able to generate any power. The wind hits them on both sides, and they flutter back and forth. That's called luffing. And when you change from one tack, from the wind coming over the right side to the left side or vice versa, that's called a tack. And you're not established on your new tack until the wind fills in and you are established on course. So right now, right there, I was established on the new tack. in between there, I'm considered tacking. And that plays into the rules later, which I'll get into with that video. So we're getting pretty close to the mark here. You can see it's according to the DNM distance to the next mark. It's about 0.3 nautical miles away, so we're really close. I should be able to tack around the mark now and leave it to the left side of the boat on the port side, which I can do easily. And then after that, we'll turn left, hoist the jib, and it's a dash for home to the finish line. And we've got this race pretty well in hand. Again, mostly because of the skipper error on the New Zealand boat's part. You can see how the boat wants to broach again if that wind is coming too much to the side. 21 knots of wind with that sail on that angle is just too much, and it wants to knock the boat over. So we're sailing downwind on the spinnaker, flying along at 14 knots, while that New Zealand boat was still beating back toward that mark, doing probably about 7 or 8 knots. So we are stretching our lead, and time-wise, we'll see when he crosses that mark how we did. Again, we have to pass between the green buoys. You can see one of them dead ahead. That arrow marks the center point between those two buoys, but all we have to do is cross in between, and we will have been considered finished the race. So 46-second lead now. So with the wind coming more toward the side there, it's probably just a little bit too much for the boat. I put the spinnaker down, and we're just running on the jib. And we've got enough of a lead that I think we've got this one in the bag. You can see on the radar screen on the bottom, or the bird's eye view of the map, the Australian or the New Zealand boat is still well behind us, and we are just about across the line. There you have it, victory. We finished the course in just under 13 minutes. So we had a good time, and we chalked up another win against a very equal boat. So after today's matches, Brazil beats France, Australia beats Germany, the United States defeats New Zealand, Switzerland beats Spain, Japan beats Great Britain, and Italy beats China. We've now completed round 4 of our Melges Cup, and the United States is in a 6-way tie for the lead. 3 wins and 1 loss for Australia, France, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, and the United States. So we are on a roll. Behind us is New Zealand and Japan with 2 wins and 2 losses. Brazil and China each have 1 win. Great Britain and Germany still looking for their first wins. So that's it. We've completed the 4th round here at the Melges Cup. We are now tied for the lead in the series with 3 wins and a loss. I hope this was educational for you about sailing, and hopefully you'll get into this game. It's pretty fantastic. I really do enjoy it. So we'll be back with round 5 pretty soon. We'll see you out on the water. This is Ram 55, and thanks for watching. If you enjoy what you see, please give a like, subscribe if you would like, and leave some comments. I'll get back to you if I can. We'll talk to you later.